the Saito space. We're going to answer them before we leave. We want to give an update on stuff that's happened before the announcement, but kind of updates, letting you guys know what's happened. It's not a big announcement. We're going to start with this. So, Richard, the first thing you've got on the list is mod tools.
Yeah, I think we've done a little bit of work. I think people don't really necessarily know this. Every time we've been releasing stuff, sometimes we're going into alpha, sometimes alpha to beta, to use kind of terminology people know. And then invariably when we push stuff out, the rubber hits the road. Reality comes in and we need to make some changes, improvements. We've been really blown away by how good and how well Mod Tools has worked in terms of just giving us a really great, fresh experience on Red Square. I've been really surprised.
Usage is up. The quality of content is up.
Yeah, it's been great. And so we're just wanting to make sure that we've got the tools there to investigate, as that usage keeps going up, and people might want to use Mod Tools more for curation than for moderation, that we can actually give them something to see what they're doing, like by making certain choices, what am I excluding, promoting, etc. So, that's been going on in the background, but I mean, it's been a pretty big success.
For details, I think there are changes in process to provide like lists so people can go in and see the stuff that has been modded out, so that people can go and see what the server is considering valid, invalid. We didn't have this stuff at the start, but we're adding it. And so this stuff is happening. We're not really even mentioning it, but yeah, it's a good reminder that all of these weeks of stuff that you've seen in the past, we're continuing to do work on them.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention the YouTube stuff. This is being Swarmcast peer-to-peer, but it's also on YouTube.
Yep.
So you might be watching it on YouTube. Who knows? It's now.
I like the fact they've kind of resurrected simulcast, because they used to say that all the time, simulcast, about sporting events and stuff. It's meaning they had two broadcasters. But yes, with simulcast feature is available.
It's now live, and if you're doing a Swarmcast, it's going to be up here. So it's part of the default controls.
Yep.
We've also updated the wiki, so there's just this step-by-step, just go into applications, and there's a Swarmcast option. And if you go into Swarmcast, there's a quick link that says, click on this. It walks you through how to get YouTube set up. Make sure you do it 24 hours in advance, but that's not public. So it's not secret team sauce. You guys can help us break it too.
Yep. On that quick little note, if anyone wants to use anything like Restream.io, if you are doing a podcast, etc., and you're currently using OBS, whatever, it's sending stuff out to multiple places and you use Restream, let us know. We should be able to add that feature if anyone actually wants it.
I see exciting crypto updates. I know Con has worked on polishing some wallet.
Yeah, there's been wallet improvements, little stuff to just be better about showing, like when you use the user menu, you click on someone's Identicon, you want to send them crypto, identifying if they've set up and they've got a wallet, and showing their Identicon in the UI. Little things like that to just take away a few paper cuts and make it simpler and quicker to use. And a bunch of stuff around responsiveness. So just, people wanted to look at their transaction history and stuff, making that faster. So, you could check,
And there is probably a lot more. Like, because people report stuff. We got the report about the email, the backup email not working. I'm pretty sure that used to be working because I remember it working. So it stopped working at some point. Thank you. I think it's Tristan.
Tolkien.
Yeah. Tolkien. We're gonna get that fixed. If you guys run into issues like that, pop the message on Red Square. We all read it. So we're going to see it, and I'm going to try to make Richard feel bad about it, and he's going to try to pressure me into fixing it. And one of us is going to win.
People are saying in YouTube, fix my mic. I think I just did. Let me know if I didn't. I think on that as well, we do have some other cool features coming up with games and staking, etc., etc. So watch the space for that.
The big, really interesting thing, I guess, we're hoping to do this later. It's interesting. So we can mention this. We call it dynamic mod compilation. So this is kind of what the Rust team has been working on for the last couple of days. Right now, when we're compiling modules, we're compiling them using Webpack and JavaScript. And we're looking at some new techniques that will let us basically take the module and put them into transaction so that you can drag and drop the module into your browser.
Yep.
And it's kind of slowing down the Rust side of things, but we think it's really interesting because it means anyone will be able to code modules. We're not going to need to put them on our server, right?
Yeah.
Like if you can get your hands on the transaction, even if you're using our server, you can use whatever set of modules you want. So that's a big change. Stuff is happening behind the scenes. We're trying to figure out how to support it. You can probably expect big news there later this summer.
Yeah, no, that's good. So I've been just fiddling with my mic because people are mentioning it. I think that's also really cool because it gives us, like, people have seen us do this again and again with different aspects of things. It gives us a take on app storiness where you've got like a really peer-to-peer option where you can bundle apps as transactions and use that whole PKI infrastructure, being able to sign things, identify them, own them without having to go cap in hand to Apple or Google to distribute your app.
It's going cap in hand to us, right? Because right now you need to compile the JavaScript and we distribute that JavaScript. And if someone wants to install an app, they need to compile with that app installed. And so this will get rid of that. It's also going to shrink the size of the JS because the applications, games, like there are a bunch of games that some people like, and if we distribute all of them with the JS just blows up the size.
And all this work we've just mentioned that we're doing, every line of code adds just a little bit of weight to the system. So this is also going to make it just a bit lighter and easier to disperse.
Yeah. So big announcement. Before we get to that, though, one more thing, which is I'd like to mention briefly that we are seeing impact from Saito Summer.
Yep.
We have visibility. The visibility that we get is in terms of people that contact us who should have no visibility into Saito. They're not people we're expecting to hear from, and we've noticed a measurable uptick in that.
Yep.
People still are often very confused. They're kind of like, what is this Saito thing? Why is it happening below my radar? What's going on? But we're noticing it. So if you're sharing, if you're promoting, it's making a difference.
It really is. So, and I think it's across the board. I mean, some of it is academic. People coming in and saying, work on research teams or they're academics. Some of it is
as much academic.
Yeah.
We're getting, it tends to bounce off the academics because what they do is they're interested until they can dismiss it, and they try to find a way to dismiss it, which is mostly, I have some intuitive reason why in proof of stake this is not possible. Therefore, routing work is probably broken. And then some of them do dig deeper.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're making, and they're all slow. Academics are very slow.
we're making responses.
We'll see. The other thing, if you visit the arcade, Red Square, you'll see more posts. There are a lot more people visiting the arcade organically for games.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of TS players, the China community is growing. So, if usage isn't visible to you, but you want to be more exposed to what the project is and what we're working on and how things grow, a really easy suggestion is learn TS and come and play with some of the people that are playing.
And just hang around inside a chat. I mean, it's pretty active, and Red Square's got more and more content and stuff. On that note, I think maybe thanks to Maxime as well. I saw he ran a meme contest that was pretty cool and got a lot of traction. I think that stuff also helps get the word out past the community and into other places. People see it going by on Twitter. They come into Red Square and they see sort of the ream of stuff that they can get into. So really appreciate that kind of work. Maxime is a legendary Saito.
Yeah. So two things. First is less big. Richard, do you want to leak this one?
The first one, I think we had a kind of alpha version out a while ago, and Dan, to his credit, took it aside, euthanized parts of it, rebuilt it, polished it up, and we tomorrow we will relaunch into beta the file sharing, peer-to-peer file sharing. It's a pretty big feature, really simple to use. If you're chatting to someone, you just get an option to upload a file, send it to them. And again, it's peer-to-peer the same way this is, the same way other things are. So there's no one's curating, moderating, checking what you're sending, etc. It's just you and the person receiving the file. So that's coming out tomorrow. And then the other one, David, do you want to drop that?
This is I'm really excited with it because it's kind of a 4 birds with one stone. The new feature that's coming out tomorrow, we're calling it game casting. This is a combination of the Saito arcade and all of the different games you can get with the video call swarmcasting tech. So what it allows you to do is, again, it's going to go live tomorrow on staging. You can experiment with it if you want. When you're in a game, you can click on the menu and there's a share option, and there's going to be a swarmcast option or a broadcast option. We've got to tweak the text before we actually let you guys play with it on prod. Click on that, and you're going to basically start a Swarmcast space. There's a box that will pop up, optional. You can turn it on, you can turn it off, audio without audio, that will record you as you play. And so it's basically any of the games that are going to come for Saito, you've got the ability to peer-to-peer broadcast them. And you've also got the ability, because we've got YouTube support now, you can get that onto YouTube. I'm excited about this for a number of reasons. There are communities around some of the more advanced games, Red Imperium, Here I Stand, Twilight Struggle, where people want to do this. And the tools don't exist to let them do this. And they're kind of scuttling around trying to figure out, how can I combine a physical camera with a game board? That sort of thing. We've got this massive, massive educational problem in a lot of our better games, because the games that people really want to play are the more complicated ones, and newbies or people who aren't into board games, they just don't know how to play them. And we, as a team, we've been looking at this because we're seeing that the people that are coming in, who are playing the games, they know how to play them. And the people who don't know how to play them are like, okay, when is Saito going to do something actually useful, right? So there's this massive disconnect, which is largely around education. So the people that don't know how to play, they'll come in and they'll test out chess and then they'll leave. And the people that want TS will come in and they'll play TS, and they'll come back and they'll play TS again, and they'll come back and they'll play TS again. And then at some point, someone's like, crypto, because they're here for the application of the peer-to-peer gaming. So I'm really excited for it, because it also is going to hopefully help us with some of these educational issues. So not only is it a feature that people do want to use, I mean, there are companies like Twitch that's all they do. But it's also something that we're hoping is going to solve the educational problem, because we can start really easily recording games, and like, here's a recording of the first turn, and it's going to show you how to play. And if you're playing as France in this game, here's a couple of strategies you might think about. That's two. The third is SEO and visibility. Because how do we, getting things out onto Google, getting things onto YouTube, searchable, so that people that search for videos, search for the board games, search for the how to plays, they can actually find it, and we can start getting people who are looking for information about the board game to be more aware of what we're doing, and more aware that, hey, there's this great on web version that you can play on your iPad. And it doesn't require you to download Steam or, any of this stuff. So I'm really excited for it. I've used it. Richard, you've used it. This isn't, also, we should mention, this isn't this, just broadcast your screen.
I think that's one of the interesting things, is it basically, it's kind of, I think of it as like teleporting. We're pulling apart the interface and sending it in pieces in the same way that kind of desktop sharing does, which can be very efficient. And also can help us with things like, obviously there are different modes, someone speed running something essentially, or just playing a game, but there's also if you're in a tournament, this has had massive input for people being able to watch and talk, watch someone give live commentary about what they're thinking, etc., in a tournament against an opponent. But in that case, we need to be able to make sure that certain things aren't visible, and this gives us the ability to actually have an interface that's kind of exactly what the player is looking at, but able to
you fuzz out the cards. You're playing poker and you fuzz out the cards, because you've got that kind of granular control, and it's the sort of thing we can update the game engine to do. So poker will hide this info, and this other game will hide this other info, or maybe you don't. You can give people control over it. It's not just, here's what's on my screen.
Yeah, so I think to me as well, it's also just partially responding here to something that people wanted, but also you can sort of see and understand a little bit about the approach generally with Saito with this, where we have certain features like the ability to just send and receive video across the internet, right? And The reason that's not commonly available, as commonly available as it should be, is that it's, companies only want to give it to you if they can work out how to sell it to you.
Yeah.
And so there are all of these products and modes and things we can do, which are kind of a set of building blocks. We've got the stun channel, which we use for this, but we can also use for the file share. So where can we give people tools they can use that are just how they should be, right? File sharing shouldn't be a matter of needing to be a network technician or needing to have permission or like sign up. You should just be able to send things to people on the internet. That's what it's for. And to me, that's why I get excited about these things, because it puts that in the hands of people and also demonstrates to developers, look, you don't have to have your hands tied when you want to build these things. You don't have to have your hands tied by how do I create fake scarcity out of something that's actually freely available just so that I can get a few users to give me some cash. And so, I think it's part of a very exciting trajectory.
I mean, it's also a model for, it's a game, but it's really any other application where you're layering with video and you're layering on.
I had a great sideline the other evening. I was working on something, but someone was designing a font, swarmcasting it, Mino, I think, on Saito. So I was just watching a swarmcast of a guy using a glyph tool, which I've never seen, piece of software I've never seen before, because I'm not a designer and I don't make fonts. But he was, creating kind of this interesting bubble font for some client, or I don't know why I was doing it. But, the ability to add to that commentary, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, this is something that people are going to be doing.
It should bring more natural swarmcasts. So it should also bring more excitement to Red Square because there's more stuff to share.
Yeah.
The videos, it should help us to reach out on Twitter. So we're excited by it. I'm going to be doing some myself. I'm expecting that Tuco will be doing a bunch too. So that's going to go out tomorrow. And I'm looking forward.
Cool. So I think we've pretty much blasted through today. I think if anyone has any questions, now's your time, or we'll wrap this up, put it in the can. Not seeing any on YouTube.
Who will use these free features is the one question I see. I've got a bunch of channels on my phone of people that are actually asking for this for one of the games because it just doesn't exist. So the people that are going to use this stuff are the people where there's no solution for them. And honestly, if someone has that mentality with Saito, you should either be developing apps that you want, or you should be open-minded and actually understand who's using the apps. Because as the dev team, we're responding to the people that are using the apps. And we're actually looking and we're seeing where usage happens. And, we know that there are shitcoiners in the community that, when CX, we care about usage. That's what we're prioritizing, and that's what the dog fooding section of the roadmap is about. So when we take a look at Red Square, when we take a look at mod tools, when we take a look at gaming, streaming, swarming, the one thing we're trying to hyper-focus on is this something that's going to deliver utility? I think Richard had this wonderful, a call with a guy on Saito, and he was like, I should use this all the time because even he was off about Zoom.
No, this is the thing. It was a buddy of mine wanted me to kind of mock a job interview with him, and he wanted to use Zoom because that's what the interview would be in. And we had such a fucking hard time getting it to work. And now, I didn't even know this, Zoom now, if you don't have a paid account to try and make you pay, enforces a 10-minute break if you run out of time. So let's just flip to Saito because it just works. And he got the job, I think, and he's probably, I hope he's going to be deploying Saito Talk in his new business because, it's once you've started using it, once we use it all the time for team calls and stuff, you just get frustrated when you have to go to something where it's limited in a bunch of ways, So.
It's the reason why we encourage people who have problems post on Red Square if you're using it, because sometimes someone will say I'm running into problems doing this, and we're like, someone's trying to do this. Why the hell would they? Okay, we're going to make it possible for them to do this. We've actually had some suggestions. I know Alex. He's like, why are you guys waiting to connect to payments with video call? And it's like, that's going to happen. Of course that's going to happen. And it's actually one of the interesting things with Summer Free, because Ethereum was not that long ago. That was like a month ago, right? So maybe on crypto or internet time, people are like, well, that's old news. And it's like, well, actually, the reason we haven't got that feature out yet is because this stuff that we're releasing has been in the pipeline for a while. And
Yeah.
if we just released something a month ago, there's stuff that's basically we've been polishing and we've been working on, and we're not going to get to this other stuff. But it's coming.
Yeah.
So if you want stuff, hype up about it, especially if it's stopping you from using an app.
Absolutely. Someone's asking as well about statistics and monthly user base. I've started seeing this a bit more recently, and obviously we're not Google. We don't track people and we don't force logins, etc. So it's not a super simple thing. Where people are doing things peer to peer, you don't necessarily have any insight into how many of them are doing it.
Yeah.
So that's part of the point. People don't have to go through us to do stuff. So I'll have a think about the best way we can get some visibility into that. Partially because we'd like to know more as a project, and partially to share. But it is a pressing and interesting question.
It's not like you can't see how dynamic things are. Come to Red Square. Come to the arcade.
Yep.
The easiest way to see how things are, how dynamic they are at different points of time is sit on the website for 5 minutes and see if there are game invites available and if people are posting in chat. Or visit Red Square once a day and see, okay, in the last 24 hours, how much activity has happened. Is it good activity or is it garbage activity?
Yep.
It's the kind of stuff we eyeball. I think we probably can get stats. I just don't know how helpful they are, because there's stuff like the Zoom calls where the Zoom calls don't generate a lot of on-chain activity, but they're high value because the people.
Well, it can also be misleading, because if you have a 3-person or 4-person call and one person has a dodgy connection, you send a lot more transactions on the network because they're dropping off and coming back.
Yeah.
So we want it but again, we're not monitoring, so we don't know what a call is. So that's that's something I'll look into. I'll think about, because we'd obviously like to have better insight ourselves and know more about. But
we should. It's mostly more why maybe it's just not a priority. And I think anyone can, if you've been following Saito Summer and you've seen the stuff that's been released, that's what's being developed, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not, because that's the stuff that needs to happen for transaction volume and utility to grow.
Yeah. So a couple of questions, again, same asker, so I want to answer all of them. In terms of when fees are going to be live, best in-depth discussion of that you'll get from us is the Tokenomics update, I think 3 weeks ago in summer.
I think fees are already live. If you want to pay them, you can pay them.
That's true. It's true. Well, the nodes are not requiring them.
We're not requiring them. Someone else wants to set up a server with an application that requires fees, we're more than happy to connect. I think it's interesting. People approach Saito, and the perspective is driven by the way the proof of stake networks work, and it's not really relevant to the bootstrapping problem we have. Like, we've got to get utility up on the network, and then when utility is up on the network, we need to manage a transition to fee-paid utility. Now, fee-paid utility does not mean that users are necessarily going to be paying fees. It could be intermediaries. Like, we might say, okay, it's fee-free for you if you install this advertising module. And the advertising module is run by someone else, or we can set it up so that someone else will pay your transaction fee, because the free market can take that. But it's, it kind of is in the roadmap, I think. But the most important thing is utility. If we don't have utility, if there's no applications people want to use, it's fantasy land to be like, okay, well, the problem is when our fees can be supported on the network. That's not, it's like, it's the South Park thing, like step 1 buy garden gnome, step 3 profit. It's like, okay, you've got a mental model, but we're actually developing the network, and there's got to be a reason for people to use it too.
Yeah.
So
I think there's one more question from the same question. Are you seeing any others in chat?
I'm not sure where you're looking at these questions.
I can see the YouTube live stream, so I get other questions there.
Oh, you're seeing it on YouTube?
Yeah, because I'm adminning the YouTube live stream. In terms of CXs in USA, this is getting very, very difficult for anyone to solve because of the compliance requirements in the US. There's only very, very few exchanges that can even do it, and many are pulling out. So unfortunately, like, you know, we would love to have a CX option for North America and USA people, but there's basically fewer and fewer options to look to. And if you do list on one, it could be months worth of time in terms of actually, you know, going through and doing all the compliance work, proving nobody's a US citizen, and all sorts of, you know, difficult things. So it is something we keep an eye on, but it's proving very, very difficult to find options in that space. So
I think it's one interesting thing. Maybe if there are people in the community that want to work on this, because we've got the on-chain payments, there's absolutely nothing at this point stopping people from doing three-way trading on-chain with Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Saito. Because the Saito wallet supports all three.
Yep.
If a third party wants to do this, this is fine. If someone wants to set up a trading desk, handle buy-sell orders backed by, you know, and basically batch process things on a DEX or one of the other CXs, there's no reason we can't do that. So also, like, think in the Saito perspective. Saito perspective is that we can, the Saito wallet is its own CEX. What you need is you need a counterpart. So we do have these discussions in-house. Like, we're thinking one of the big long-term questions, the open questions, is to what extent should we be prioritizing the team coming in and stepping and doing things like providing liquidity bidirectionally so people can trade on Saito?
yeah,
Is that useful? Is that compatible? What would we need to do to actually do it? Is it the sort of thing where, as a small team, it's a good use of resources?
right.
Like, should we do it now, or should we be developing pay-per-play swarmcasting?
Yeah.
Right? Like, and we've got the stuff that we've developed. So it's mostly a prioritization issue. Because prioritization issues are under our control. Something like a CEX, those guys will come to us. They will come to us because it is going to increasingly be apparent that we solve problems that no one else solves. This is some of the stuff that's actually happening behind the scenes. We got hit up today by a US VC who was like, "Oh, we're really interested in learning," and, you know, great for them to do this. But what's interesting is they didn't really know much about what was happening. They were kind of clueless about the problems that Saito would solve. The fact that we're percolating onto some Americans' radar on that level, where it's something I should be looking into, is interesting, because we're not based in the States. And we can see that the way that people are talking about Saito is not really particularly visible to people in the United States either. But things are happening. So if we are willing to support that, we're willing to pursue it, the best way for you to help us on that is getting more people talking and aware of this, you know? Like, we see people on Twitter like Wesley. Wesley's amazing. Like, he's a
Thanks,
VP.
Wesley.
He gets right down to the fundamentals. His tweets are golden. They help people.
Yeah.
You know, stuff like that. The more people get to where Wesley has gotten, you know, you guys are going to look back and be like, "Why the hell were we ever worried about this?" Anyway, so that's how you can help. Unless you want to run an on-chain CEX for Saito, if you want to do that, get in touch. We've got a bunch of stuff prioritized. I mean, Saito Summer, we've got weeks of stuff to talk about.
Yep.
So we can push things around. We're open to talking about things.
Yeah, and I mean, we've got people building other apps now as well that have come out of things we've launched in Saito Summer. So yeah, like, do hit us up. That's the next big thing, I think, is like David said, the team not being at the forefront of all the development.
It'll slow us down if we do an on-Saito trading desk. Yeah. Because that's going to be a non-trivial allocation of resources, which means the speed of developing all of this other stuff, which is what is driving usage, right?
Which is what makes it attractive, yeah.
Right? Like, you know, think about it from the team perspective. We do not have people using Saito as a financial token yet on chain. People can, but they're not, and we've got that token persistence curve. And until we get to the end of it and these small scale transfers are possible, we don't think it's going to be a priority for people. So we're prioritizing things that people are actually using, and we're bringing in the token value, and we're bringing in this stuff to to create a snowball effect over time.
Yep.
But if you want to move faster and you want to run a trading desk or something, get in touch.
Yep. All right.
And
I don't see any more questions, and we've clicked over our 30 minutes, so maybe let's wind up here. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Thanks for the questions. And
we got the podcast, I think. Is that Thursday?
oh, yeah, we've got to mention that. Thursday night, we've got the second in the new podcast series. So
It's John from Blake 3.
yeah.
This is why you should care. A quick pitch. Saito, we don't use SHA-256, which is the Bitcoin hashing algorithm. We use Blake 3, which we think is much, much, much better. It's faster, it's more performant for massive blocks like the kind we're going to have. It's also what you want because you can do it in parallel.
Yeah.
So we're really excited because we get to chat with Blake. It's also interesting for us because people in crypto don't tend to even pay attention to these guys. And we think if you're looking for like a trilemma solver that's a technical solution, I think this is as good as it gets. So hopefully it will be a good conversation. Hopefully we'll get these guys some attention because the work they're doing is spectacular.
Yeah, it's pretty, reading up on it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. So that's gonna come out. Hopefully that will be exciting.
Cool.
If you like hashing algorithms, it'll be a good day.